I'm so excited you've joined us for Chasing Greatness. We've been actually on the YouTube channel this week as well. If you listen typically on the audio, you can check these out on the YouTube channel, chasinggreatness.tv. You can get all the info you want there. We got Mark Miller with us. He's written a new book called Culture Rules. Mark's the leadership and high performance guy here at Chick-fil-A, little restaurant company. Those of you in the U.S. probably heard of. You guys have been dominating these last few years, which is cool. And you got this new book out, Culture Rules. We've been sharing those last few days. If you've missed any of those episodes, I encourage you to go back and listen to them, because Mark has done a great job of setting up the need for culture and how leaders animate culture. And yesterday, we dove into rule number 1 to aspire. You've got to know what it is you're trying to do and then share your hopes and dreams for your culture with your people. You want everybody saying the same thing. We said, well, today we got a new rule, Mark. Welcome back to the show. And we're trying to help these people chase greatness. As you think about it, there's rule number 2, which is to amplify. I'm guessing you want us to make it loud and bigger and all that. Can you talk about this rule?
Sure. The second rule is to always work to amplify the aspiration.
Okay.
Now, this is a little tricky because you might think, well, there are many, many ways to do this. So this is probably a good point for me to call out. There are 3 rules, but they're infinite moves. Okay. And the way I try to explain that, I go back to another football example. The forward pass is allowed by rule, but they're infinite routes that the receivers can run.
Okay.
And so although that the rule is amplify, there are a lot of things you can do to amplify the aspiration. But so we decided that we wanted to focus on the unique role and contribution of the leader. And we said, what are those things that leaders can do that will have disproportionate weight and priority in the hearts and minds of their people? And one of those things that we came up with, in fact, it was number 1 based on our work, is we said that is role modeling.
Okay.
In the book, we call it follow the leader.
Well, and I've heard you say 1,000 times, if I've heard you say it once, people always watch the leader, right?
People always watch the leader.
Yeah.
So let's leverage that as we're trying to amplify the cultural aspiration. So lots of examples. I know the people watching and listening probably have examples that can come to mind pretty quickly when they've seen a leader model the way. So we had fun collecting examples as we were preparing to write the book. One of my favorites is from Alexander the Great. And for those that aren't history buffs, that
was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago. 334 BC, he began an 8-year campaign to conquer the known world.
Okay.
Right? Crazy.
That's a pretty big aspiration.
Pretty big aspiration. Yeah, and he was in his 20s at the time.
Okay.
So, crazy deal. He was 8 years in. Actually, it was a 10-year campaign. He was 8 years into that campaign, 326 BC.
Okay.
When there was a battle in what is modern-day Turkey. They were fighting the Malians, and they were about to take the citadel, and his men were not moving as quickly as he thought they should. So he grabbed the ladder and went up first.
Okay.
And ended up on the top of the wall in hand-to-hand combat.
Wow.
And his men, seeing what he had done, quickly tried to go up the ladder. Of course, they destroyed the ladder. And so he decided all he could do at that point was jump into
the fight.
Jumped in. By the time his men got another ladder and got up there, got on the other side, they found him with his back up against a tree to defend himself, and he's fighting folks. He's got an arrow in his side. It's a wound that almost killed him.
Wow.
Now, let me tell you why I tell that story. That's a great, cool story.
That is
something
very
like
cool.
you might see in a movie, right? The leader jumps into the enemy. Okay, that's all good. Where that fits in this context is Alexander was known for talking about courage and bravery.
Right.
It's one thing to talk about courage and bravery.
But when you go up the ladder, you amplify.
It's another
right?
thing when you go up first and you go over the wall.
Yeah, that's wild. That's so good.
Historians even wonder how successful he would have been, his men would have been over the course of that decade had he not led from the front.
Modeled, yeah.
Because they weren't just fighting for their country.
Yeah.
They weren't just fighting for their families. They were fighting for him.
Yeah.
Because he was there.
Yeah.
He was there.
That's
powerful.
So powerful.
So
That's
powerful.
amazing. So people always watch the leader. I say oftentimes the leader's voice is the loudest voice. As we think about amplifying the aspiration, like if the leader's not talking about it, there's a good chance it's not going to be valued. Agree?
Sure.
Yeah.
Again, it is, you got to talk about it, but that's really aspire.
Yeah.
Amplifies when you do something about it, when you model it, when you show people.
I think we would say the leader's voice is the loudest voice, but the leader's example is louder than her voice or his voice.
Well, and it's interesting. The second best practice that we came up with was storytelling, which is the leader talking.
Okay.
But he or she is making heroes of others.
Right.
They're showcasing people who are living the aspiration.
Yeah.
And that you get more of that kind of behavior.
Yeah, that's good. So as we kind of wrap this up here, I would just ask you, what are you doing to amplify your aspiration? If you've not taken time to lock in on like what you're aspiring to do, and your people don't know about that, we got to go back and start there. But once you get that in place, once you share your hopes and dreams for your people, you literally got to decide, am I going to go up the ladder first? Am I going to amplify? Am I going to make it bigger, louder, stronger? That's the job of the leader, to amplify the culture. It's rule number 2. You'll never build a high-performance culture if you don't have the leader amplifying what it is you're trying to do. I hope you'll join us tomorrow. Mark's going to give us rule number 3. If you've not pre-ordered the book yet, I hope you'll do that. You can go to leadeveryday.com. Mark, you got all kind of great stuff on there.
Yeah, let me say this.
Say something about
if somebody buys 11 copies, just 11 copies, I'll do a Zoom call with your team.
Well,
now, if you buy 500, I'll get on a plane and I'll come and I'll do a keynote for you.
Yeah, you're not going to
on my dime.
We've
sold a few of those.
We have sold some of those.
Sold
it's great. And so if you need help with your organization, Mark will help you. We got all kind of resources that are coming out. We'll maybe talk about those as we go forward. But let's amplify the culture. If this would help you in these resources, I think the book would be one of the things you could do to amplify this content in your own mind first. Will be helpful. Join us tomorrow as we continue talking about culture rules. Love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow for more Chasing Greatness.